Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Bregg in the 15-minute pool on ICC. Let's open with d4 in this game. 1783, had to wait a little while to get this opponent. Let's play a Queen's Gambit. Usually they go either Queen's Gambit declined as he's playing, or Slav with c6. Knight c3 is my go-to against this opening. I thought briefly about playing Knight f3 or g3, but I'm just so successful with Knight c3. Like, my win percentage is just crazy with this line. So I see no reason to deviate. And he plays c5, so indicating he wants to go to the Tarrasch. Let's play Knight f3 here. Move order subtlety at this point. Knight c6 is most accurate. Knight f6, on the other hand, is supposed to be dubious in view of bishop g5, I believe. Let's play g3. So against this line, it's good to fiend kettle the light square bishop. The thinking is you don't really want to play e3 because you want to leave open the dark square bishop. Moreover, this bishop will be well placed on g2 because it has potential to assist in the attack on d5 later. Wow, and he plays a very early c4. You don't see this move too often. Black is taking away the potential for c takes d4, but they do gain kind of a clamp on the queen side. And if white lets this structure sit around for too long, in the middle game, black will be able to play a6 and b5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to play e4 very quickly. Bishop b4. You know, I've run into this before, actually. Bishop b4 hampers my ability to play e4. I didn't want to play it on the previous move because I'd like to get castled first. Let's see if he ends up taking on c3. Often they do. I'm just going to pre-move that, but he didn't take it. So knight g e7. Yeah, this is an interesting treatment of the position by black. So if I play e4, they could just take on c3. And I would take back, and then they might take here. Although, do I really even fear that continuation? Because then I could play knight d2. e4 might be a promising move even still. And just give this a little thought. I mean, the other option I have is just to develop, like bishop f4. Probably f4 is the better square for the bishop. I mean, if g5, he can play f6 or h6. But if bishop f4, maybe knight g6 harasses that bishop. Another move is knight e5 in this position. Just trying to attack d5 a bit better. But I'm actually kind of leaning towards this e4 move. I like that. So if e4, d takes e4, I'm happy to take with my knight. If, let's say, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, then d takes e4, then I have that knight d2 move. And I'm going to win one of these pawns back. So let's give it a shot and see how it goes. I wonder if he can just take on e4 and more or less leave his bishop out here on b4. So like d takes e4, knight takes e4. He loses support for his c4 pawn, but then again, I have an isolated d pawn. So that's something he's got to think about at least. I think the way I'm playing it is most direct. I'm not adjusting my play based on how he's developed, because bringing the bishop out to b4 in the Tarrasch is unusual for black. Usually that bishop goes to e7 instead. Okay, so he just plays to reinforce the d5 point. The bishop's vulnerable here. I could play knight g5 to attack it. I could also push past with e5. Kind of leaning towards knight g5. It's more dynamic. Any other major factors to consider? I mean, if I take on d5, he's going to take with the knight, and somehow he seems secure there. Maybe e takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5. I'd like to play rook e1 check, but notice that with my knight gone, he would have bishop takes e1, so I can't do that. e5 gains space and resolves the center tension, but I'm not sure I want that quite yet. I like knight g5. I think this is a better move. It puts more pressure on black's position compared to e5. e5 just releases the tension. Let me check my opponent's stats while I have a free moment. So he has a peak rating of 18-13. He's played about 50 games. Nothing too unusual in his stats. I'm trying to remember the game where I ran into this same setup. Could have been a blitz game, but it might have been a 15-minute game. But I distinctly recall an opponent playing in the same fashion with bishop b4. Because if I just go back for a moment, this is a nice feature of ICC. You can go back even though the game's in progress. But back to about here. My plan, if he hadn't done bishop b4, was to castle and then play e4 anyways. I might have even thrown in knight e5 to open up the bishop attacking the d5 point. But okay, he just castles. He ignores the knight attack on the bishop. That's probably a good decision. So I can take and then give him a weak pawn on e6. Another move I could play would be queen h5. I wonder how that move would work out, because then I'd be threatening mate. So let's say queen h5, h6, knight takes e6, f takes e6, e takes d5. And, if he takes back on d5, I can take on d5 with my knight, and I think I want a pawn in that line. So queen h5, threatening mate, h6, knight takes e6, f takes e6, e takes d5. With my queen out on h5, it's not defending d4, so he could play knight takes d4 at that point. But my bishop is becoming a force on g2. I could play d takes e6 then, winning another pawn and opening up the bishop to attack b7. Something about that line just seems correct to me, so I'm certainly leaning towards it right now. Now, the only other thing I want to check before I play queen h5 is if a different move order makes sense. Taking on e6 first doesn't make sense, because then after queen h5, I wouldn't be threatening mate. But I could take on d5 first. That's also a possibility. So if e takes d5, let's say knight takes d5. Have I gained anything? Let's say knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, queen h5, h6. Not seeing it. Not seeing it. So I'm just going to play this move as I intended. And h6 is forced, and there's no other good move for black. I'm outright threatening queen takes h7 mate. So it's important before embarking on a line like that you see the line through. You know, I don't just want to play queen h5 because I'm like, oh, I can develop my queen and create a threat. That might be acceptable in like a bullet game, but in a blitz or a standard game, I'm looking several moves ahead because I know black has to play h6 and I want to have my response prepared. And this is what I calculated. Now he has to take here, another force move, and I know I can take on d5 next. I would almost pre-move this, but I mean, there's an off chance he might not take. It's like one out of 5,000 games he might not play f takes e6, so I'm just not going to take the risk. So I might spend a little bit more time calculating this in a longer game, but this just feels correct to me based on my chess understanding. I'm opening the position for my two bishops. I'm especially wanting to get this light square bishop into the game, and I want to have it be more active down its current diagonal. I see some possibilities that I hadn't originally considered for him, like he might have rook f5 in this position as a way to attack my queen and also add another defender on the d5 square. I'm not concerned by that move, but he can play it. Maybe on rook f5 I play queen g4, defending d4 and threatening bishop takes h6. He could continue with h5 after that, attacking my queen. Maybe I drop it back to h3, or maybe even go to e4, but he just takes back. So now knight takes d5 was my intention. Then what's nice is after knight takes d5, he can't reply with knight takes d4 because he has this loose bishop on b4 to attend to. So if knight takes d5, if rook f5, then I have knight takes e7 check. He has to take with his knight, and then we're good. We can just move our queen away. Yeah, so I don't see any issue with this. Let's do it. So if he takes, I'll probably take with the queen. Although taking with the bishop is tempting as well. Because, ooh, actually, this could get violent. So if knight takes d5, bishop takes d5 check, king h8, let's say. What is a tactical blow that white would have against black's king? See if you can find it. So the answer is bishop takes h6. My dark square bishop joins the fray, and it just immediately sacrifices itself for a pawn. It's not even a sacrifice, though, because black can't take it. After g takes h6, queen takes h6 would be mate. So that's an important line. Knight takes d5, bishop takes d5 check. If king h8, bishop takes h6, and I think black is on the verge of just resigning at that point. Maybe, I mean, there's random moves like g6 I would have to look at, but queen takes g6. He doesn't have time to take my undefended bishop on d5 because I have mate on g7. He could play knight takes d5, bishop takes d5 check, king h7, but I can go bishop e4 check at the very least. Well, at the very least, I could take on c4 or even defend my d-pawn, because my d-pawn will be hanging. So suddenly he has Many things to figure out, and he's down a pawn. And the key factor is not necessarily even the pawn advantage for me. That's nice, but the light square weaknesses in black's position. This bishop has suddenly become a major player. So I'm kind of questioning whether he should have played 9, bishop e6, because bear in mind, like after knight g5 castles, like this whole line was almost forced. Maybe e takes d5 on the previous move was not good. I won't go far too down the rabbit hole when the game is still in progress, but that will be one thing we're looking at in the analysis. How could black have played it better? And he's starting to think, rightly so. I think the position is virtually critical now, so he needs to invest some time and figure out how best to defend. Maybe bishop to d6, just drop the bishop back. He's not going to be comfortable when I'm threatening knight takes b4 all the time. So bishop d6 at least is a secure move. I could take on e7. He plays rook f5. That was one move I mentioned, but I think knight takes e7 is just going to be good for me. Let's say knight takes e7. He must take with the knight then to defend the rook. And I like just queen g4 after that. I defend the d4 pawn. I'm attacking b7. I'm threatening bishop takes h6. He can play h5 to kick my queen away, but I just come to e4, I think, is a good square.
Check.
I'm not going to look much further than that. I trust that that position is just excellent for me. I'm up a pawn with 2 bishops. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll play queen g4. I mean, other moves are queen e2. Well, queen e2 has some merit as well because I'm threatening queen takes c4, but queen e2, maybe he can play queen takes d4. Somehow queen g4 just seems like a better move. Let's do that. I've surpassed him just by a hair on the clock now, and I want to keep up the pressure. I mean, most players playing black in this situation have lost a little confidence because the opening hasn't gone the way that they wanted it to, and I mean, clearly white is better. So I want to see if I can push that. Get him to make another mistake or overlook a threat or make a hasty decision maybe because he's fearful of falling too far behind on the clock. So 2 threats here, bishop takes b7 and also bishop takes h6. Based on that, I think black should play h5 and kick my queen away. And I'm going to go queen e4 after that. Then I have a queen bishop battery. I'm attacking b7 still after that. If he plays rook b8, maybe I can continue with bishop f4 and attack that rook with tempo. This bishop's also kind of floating out here. Okay, so I think he saw the threat. He played rook f6, defending h6, but that doesn't really address bishop takes b7. I kind of hate to like pause and capture that pawn because I lose some time. Anytime you take something, you lose a little time doing it. But a pawn is a pawn, and I mean, I'm going up 2 pawns. I don't really see much compensation for him. Maybe bishop takes b7, rook b8. Let's say bishop back to g2. He's going to go c3, perhaps? So that if I take, he takes with his bishop, and my rook is kind of lacking squares. But on c3, I could always play like queen back to e2 or something to help defend b2. Yeah, I'm not afraid of that. Let's do it. I could also, after rook b8, maybe bishop e4 is most accurate. It's a tempting move too. Because on bishop e4, I control the g6 square, and I also control the b1 square. So let's say bishop e4, he plays c3. I could potentially just take. Bishop takes and play rook b1, although d4 is loose. I mean, after bishop e4, he can't play queen takes d4 note because I have bishop h7 check, the discovery on his queen. So I think bishop g2 is correct here. I'm just making sure that's what I want to do. So if bishop g2, c3, can I just play queen to e2? I think I can. I can take here, though. I play bishop e3. It's still a good position. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm just going back to g2. It feels like the right move once again. I mean, c3 is the only active thing I can see that he can do. I mean, he's not even really threatening anything after c3. It's just I don't want to take the pawn right away is the thing. I could play a3 if I wanted. Maybe a3 is decent. c3, a3, c takes b2, bishop takes b2. I'm attacking his bishop. Looks fine. Okay, he just played king h8. Now I kind of like the looks of bishop f4, attacking the rook with tempo. He can play that bishop d6 move, though. Maybe bishop e3 also is good. Bishop f4 is straightforward. After bishop d6, he would be threatening rook takes b2, however. It's another plan. Bishop e3? Bishop e3, knight f5. Am I okay if he takes and goes into an opposite color bishop position? Probably, because I'm up 2 pawns. It's got to favor me. Yeah, let's do bishop e3. So if knight f5, I'm going to play bishop e4, I think. And if he takes on e3, I get to take with my f-pawn and repair my structure a little bit. And I think he's going to have light square problems around his king. He's already committed virtually all his pieces to dark squares, if you notice. The only thing that's not on a dark square for him is this pawn on c4. And based on that, his light squares are weak. So if I can get my queen and bishop cooperating against his king, then being up the material and having an attack, it's virtually a guaranteed win. So that's what I'm thinking. Knight f5, bishop e4. Well, he can play knight takes d4 then, can't he? Rook a d1. Still very dangerous for him. Maybe he can get away with it. Maybe just rook a d1 after knight f5. Just bide our time. Plays c3. I am not unhappy about seeing that move. I think I can just trade and then rook b1 or rook c1. I'll figure it out. I think either one is good. Maybe rook b1. Just offer a trade of the rooks. Rook c1. Also fine. Yeah, let's go rook b1 though. Pre-move that capture. If I trade, his back rank becomes weaker. I mean, I can't play rook b8 right away after that, but it's something he has to constantly think about. You can play rook fb6, but I'll probably still trade on b6. Just get a pair of rooks off the board. He does trade. I'm expecting knight f5. It's virtually the only active thing he can do right now. Plays rook b6. Okay, so do I trade or do I play something different? Well, trading looks pretty good. The only thing is after I trade, I'm assuming he'll take with the queen, and then queen b1 is a minor annoyance. I could trade and then play queen e4 maybe, which controls b1 and also attacks the knight. That's a pretty good move. I could also play rook d1 and just get behind my d-pawn. That is strong as well. Or rook c1 and attack the bishop. So many options. So candidates are rook takes b6, rook c1, or rook d1. I'm looking at all those moves. All right, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm going to take and then go queen e4. I like that move a lot. Centralize the queen. As I said, it takes care of the queen b1 issue. It attacks his knight. Also, maybe queen a8 check, and if the king goes to h7, bishop e4, and the bishop will be helping out. in the attack. Remember those light squares I was talking about? We still want to hit black on the light squares. A little surprised he's thinking on this move because, I mean, I'd probably play queen takes just on principle because a takes is passive and it's not going to help his cause. At least with queen takes, he gets some play. But he does play a takes. Okay, so what to do now? Queen e6 looks pretty good. After queen e6, he can't take on d4 twice because his knight hangs at the end of that line. Also, queen e6 is, I mean, it's just a centralizing move. If the knight moves maybe bishop e4, then I can threaten to play queen g6. So this is a move I can just play on general grounds. That also works out concretely. Bishop takes d4 is not possible. That's important. Bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, queen takes d4, queen takes e7. If he checks on d1 or a1, I can just block with the bishop, just up a piece. It wasn't easy for him after he lost the pawn in the opening, but he's been trading down too much. He can't hope to resist successfully if he just trades like this. But that's a pretty harsh criticism because, like I said, his position was pretty much beyond hope anyways. Knight g8 is a pretty good defense because if I go to e4, intending queen g6, he can pop that knight out here. So maybe just d5. Yeah, let's go d5. We're opening up our bishop, attacking the b6 pawn, and we're just pushing our passer. His bishop gains a bit more scope. It can maybe help defend his king side. But I'm not really going to attack him on the dark squares anyways, so I'm okay with that. And looks like I'm going to win another pawn too. Bishop takes b6 now. Or queen takes b6, either one. Queen takes or bishop takes, which to play? Let's go with bishop takes. I like my queen where it's at. So let's just bank the pawn. Probably queen b8 is what he'll do. Maybe I play a4 after that, intending a5. Get my a pawn rolling. After queen b8, I can't play d6, note, because he has queen takes b6. So a4, a5 could be helpful. I'm just kind of making sure that he can't do anything active. I mean, it's good when you're up this much material, like I'm up 3 pawns pretty clear, just to be wary of any like Hail Mary threats that your opponent has. I don't want to get like suddenly back ranked or have his queen and knight just begin working together because I was just blitzing out moves assuming I was going to win. I think you got to develop like a sense of danger that borders on paranoia, honestly, in chess. like good players, they never relax even when they're up like a piece and just clearly winning. Like they still find the most precise ways to convert the position. And I think that's how you want to play, honestly. Okay, here I'm thinking about d6 because that attacks his queen. Also, I defend my a2 pawn with my queen. So d6 with tempo just looks fantastic here. I don't see any reason not to play it. I mean, queen a6, queen a4, nah, nothing's going to work. If his queen leaves the defensive c8, I can play queen c8 check and go pick up his bishop. So that adds to his list of frustrations here. He could play queen b8, but I don't know, I wasn't too concerned about that. Queen a3, well, at least this way, after check, he's defending the bishop. So that, there is that. d7, maybe? Just push. Pass pawns must be pushed. Bishop e3 would be a safe move. Putting my bishop on a secure square, then also defend c1. But d7, I mean, what's he going to do after d7? I'm threatening to queen. So d7, knight takes d7. Or let's say d7, queen c1 check. I just play bishop f1. I'm not seeing how he's going to defend. He's got like one check and that's it. Yeah, let's do this move. He can invert the move order, play knight takes d7 first, but it doesn't matter. I just take with my queen. My bishop's assisting the pawn, so he can't do anything other than take this pawn either now or on the next move after he checks. Just pre-move this capture. Queen takes d7. Note that if knight takes d7, queen e8 would be too fancy, hoping for like king h7, bishop e4. Because he could have blocked on f8 with his knight. Yeah, so he's got this one check, and now we're just up a piece and 2 pawns, and he has no threats. Bishop f6. Okay, so the quickest way to win this would be to play for a mating attack, honestly. So I'm thinking just king g2. Gets out of the pin. He can't check me anywhere after that. c6 is guarded by my queen. My threat is to go queen e8 check, king h7, bishop d3 check. So that's the point of this king g2 move. I want to unpin the bishop so it can go to d3. It has a hard time defending the back rank. If he goes queen e1 trying to guard e8, I have queen c8 instead. It's the same effect. Okay, so he plays queen there. Decent defense. I can actually just play bishop d3, though. Even though that loses my bishop on b6, I have queen e8 mate after that. If I play queen e8 first, king h7, there's no bishop d3. His queen's guarding that square. So this is just winning. Also blocks a check he has on e4. Yeah, nothing left to be done. Oh, actually, I didn't see that he had that defense. So his queen is going to control the g8 square, so I can't just win with queen check. Although I could play queen e8 check, or queen e8 check, queen g8, and then queen g6. And his queen can never really move because I'm threatening queen h7 mate. I mean, I also just play queen e8 and just trade queens and win. But
check.
I think I like this way better. Going queen g6 after this. It puts him in almost total paralysis. Yeah, we'll just play it that way. He has a check on d5 or a8, but I just block with my bishop. My king is completely safe. Let's just go here to be safe. He can only just move his bishop back and forth. So this is almost like a study now, like what's the best way to win it? I think just bishop e3 and then take on h6. Yeah, because he can't do anything about that. He could just move his bishop back and forth. He's going to lose on time. But yeah, like if bishop e5 or something, bishop a1 or whatnot, bishop takes h6, and if he takes it, queen takes h6, and it's mate next move. Okay, let's go back and have a look. So we had a Tarrasch. And as I mentioned, on move 3, I mean, I just have such overwhelming results with knight c3. It's just, the line is just good. And especially the Queen's Gambit Decline Exchange variation, which you guys have seen on my channel many times. And it's not just me that thinks this. I mean, if you look this up in the database, like this line is just scoring tremendously for white. So some people play knight f3 or g3, usually Catalan players, but there's no reason not to play knight c3. So he plays c5, the Tarrasch variation. And then he plays c4 very early, closing the position. Now there is a line that goes knight f6, bishop g2, bishop e7, castle, castle, bishop g5. This is one of the traditional lines in the Tarrasch. And here black can play c4 on move 9. And in fact, there's a book that I've referenced before by Jacob Aagaard and Ntirlis is the other guy's name who wrote a co-author of that book, where they recommend c4 and they make a very good case for it. And as far as I know, this is theoretically sound for black, and nothing really has shook that assessment. But to see c4 as early as we did in this game is unusual, and I don't quite believe it because black needs to have better piece support to make this move work. He's advancing a pawn into my territory. I mean, interestingly enough, it's not that pawn itself that's the problem. Like, I'm not going to challenge it with b3 because he does have the bishop. Whoops, he does have the bishop b4 pin. But it's more so like the fact that he never has c takes d4, which is a primary source of counterplay for black. So like I never have to worry about my center pawn, and I can just focus on hitting his center pawn. So like if the game had continued, let's say knight f6, castles, bishop e7, something like this, I believe it's correct for white to go like knight e5 and then try to do a quick e4, attacking this and trying to destabilize c4 as well. I could be wrong about that, though. This would be interesting to look up. But the way he played it with bishop b4, I castled, he played knight ge7. Man, I kind of like playing e4 anyways at this point. I'm just going to stick on the engine now. Maybe taking on e4 right now is the best decision for him. He played bishop e6 instead in the game and tried to defend d5, but maybe he should just recognize that it's not worth trying to fortify this pawn and instead take. Because it's not one-way traffic. Like, I also get a isolated pawn here. I mean, his pawn is weak, but so is my d pawn. The computer likes white, but this looks better than what happened in the game. So bishop e6. And as I said, I have a choice as far as what to do with the tension. It's a typical choice. You have three options. You can take the pawn, you can push past, or you can play some other move. Those are your three options. And most lower level players, I've noticed, they almost always either take or push past. Lower rated players are not comfortable with tension oftentimes, so they're unwilling to like let the position just sit there. But as you can see, the computer loves knight g5, and that's what I played too. I mean, to my eye, this just looks like the most demanding. If black was unwilling to take on e4 on the previous move, I think he's going to be even more unwilling to take now when I have this knight hanging over his head, and I can damage his pawn structure and get the bishop pair, expose his king. So I'm just trying to ratchet it up the pressure. More so, though, I just want to keep my options open. I don't necessarily know yet which structure I prefer, or if I even prefer one of those two options at all. Maybe I just want to play for activity. So, hence why I like knight g5. And again, the computer says he should take on e4. It's not as good as on the previous move. Yeah, I guess I don't even have to take back. I can just play for activity, like attack these pawns, and virtually everything is weak for black. I mean, I also have a loose pawn here, but black hasn't castled yet, and I have the bishops, so I feel like the stakes are higher for him. One misstep could just be the end of his position. Instead, he castled, though, and this was just a forced line. Queen h5, h6, take. Okay, here the computer says taking here is better. Why is that? So if I take on if he takes on d5, I take here. Oh, okay, this is the line I was trying to get in the game. And then bishop takes d5. Because I mentioned the possibility of king here, bishop takes h6, which pretty much just wins on the spot, I believe. So maybe that was a more accurate move order. So e takes d5 instead of knight takes e6. And he can take my knight, but I take here. Yeah, this looks pretty awesome for me. I'm attacking this pawn. Bishop takes g5. My light square bishop's opened. Okay, so I didn't play it perfect. That would have been a stronger move order. I took here first and then took here, which also looks pretty good. He took back. Maybe rook f5 is better. Rook f5, queen g4, h5. I mentioned this move on a couple occasions. Queen e2. I could play queen e4, but he can actually take with the pawn then, unlike the game when the tension had already been resolved. And I can't take here because he has enough defenders. So that was probably his best shot, rook f5, and it's still not very nice for him. Maybe just queen back to e2 or something. But, hey, at least he's not losing something here. E takes d5. Rook d1, just defend the pawn. Yeah, I still like white's pressure. Black's pawns are suspicious. He has loose pawns on d5 and h5. His rook is kind of strangely placed. And my bishop is a major player, the light square bishop. But he took here, and I took with the knight, opening the position, and we're up material.
Check.
The position is beyond saving for black, I believe. Yeah, I was saying here I thought he should play h5 to kick my queen away, but after queen e4, I guess it just doesn't really help him. Because I was threatening those two things, bishop takes h6 and bishop takes b7. Queen b6 is another defense. I didn't see that move. That addresses both pawns, defends both of them, but yeah, just bishop e3. It's more of the same. So rook f6 I took, and then bishop back to g2. I think he has to try c3 here. That seems like the only move. And once again, I said it in the game, but just to reiterate, if I take, the idea is after bishop takes, then the rook is attacked, and he's controlling the only square that my rook can go to. Apparently here I can play bishop f4 and counterattack his rook, and it's still good. But I think I would have played a3. I mentioned this move as well. So that if he takes, I can just take with a bishop, and I'm hitting his bishop, and it looks like I'm going to consolidate my 2 extra pawns. So he played king h8, though. I went bishop e3. Maybe knight f5 is a bit better. I mean, he can try to get into like an opposite color bishop position. It might give him some hope. But even then, I mentioned like the light square weaknesses around black's king, and I don't think he can survive even if he takes on e3. He's going to fall under a mating attack, most likely. I'm not sure there was too much interesting stuff that happened after this. I think black did trade a bit more than he should have, but yeah, the evaluation's already out of reach. It's plus 3.5, plus 4. That's too much. I mean, when the eval's that high, I'm ahead 2 pawns, so you would think it would be plus 2, but I mean, also white's better in other ways. Like I have the bishop pair and his king is weak, so it's even higher than plus 2. Queen e6. I think my conversion was fine. Never seemed like he got anything. Yeah, just d7 and just making sure he doesn't have any back rank Hail Mary threats that can suddenly change the course of the game. Oh, I missed forced mate. Queen e8, king here, bishop c4. Yeah, I didn't see that. Yeah, that's a good one. Useful tactical pattern to know. If queen takes b6, there's bishop g8 check, king h8, bishop f7, crucial, king h7, queen g8 mate. So this line. Or actually, I had bishop d3 as well. Check. This is the pattern I would have gone for if I had been there. So bishop f7 is important. It's a discovered attack, and it controls the g6 square, so that after this, this will be checkmate. If the bishop was anywhere else, he could escape to g6. So I missed a slightly faster way, but this was more than sufficient. Yeah, and here I was ready to play bishop e3, or I did play bishop e3 actually, and he flagged. But this is just coming on the next move, so if he plays something random, it's mate and a couple. You can't take here because of check. If he keeps moving his bishop, then yeah, I mean bishop virtually anywhere, and queen h5 is coming next. So I think black might want to discard this variation. It might be playable somehow. I would think that if they're going to go down this line, they probably have to take on e4 when white plays e4. The only thing I regret is maybe I would have been able to find that move order with, instead of taking on e6 right away, taking on d5. As I had mentioned, I thought there might be something with the move order there, but I didn't find it. So, all right, hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.